Hey, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Slightly Warped Podcast. I'm Rick, joined as always by Big Show. Show, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Now I know you've been better because when last we chatted, you were on the verge of a three-peat. Your squad was. So I've got some questions now,
All right.
because I understand that it didn't go their way big time.
Yeah,
Overall,
they squeaked out a victory against us, that's for sure.
um, really though, I want to preface this before we even go any further because anybody who's familiar with our podcast knows that throughout the course of the season, there's some jiving and there's some ribbing that we give each other because of our respective teams. And my whole thing is this: if you're a fan of the team, you're down with that team through the ups and the downs, right? The good and the
This is
bad.
true.
So when your team is down, there's going to be some ribbing, right?
Yeah,
And you've got to be level headed enough to take it.
of course.
All right. I know that there's a lot of Kansas City fans, not you, because I know you, but they are practically distraught because of what happened on Sunday night. And I'm going to read you some of the posts from social media, and you'll see where
All
I'm
right.
going with this. Um, Here's one. I have blocked or silenced all your comments. Just know it's because I don't deal with ignorance, and I feel I have the right to remove it from my life no matter who you are. This was in reference to the game. So I don't know what all was said to that person about the game, but I will say this: 9 times out of 10, some of these people are talking big time smack over the course of the year. You've got to be willing and you've got to be ready when it doesn't go your way for people to talk smack to you. It's not a
Y-
one-way street.
Correct.
Um Please do not text or ask me if I'm okay. Patrick Mahomes is black, my Chiefs are still great and still breaking history. Part of that's true. I mean, by the way,
All of
he's
that is true. All of that is true.
well, yes, the factual part. They did make history, even though they didn't three-peat. They were in it uh, for the third year in a row.
What's not true about that statement?
He's
About
half
that
black.
tweet?
He's half black.
It doesn't matter. He's black. You know that. Especially in this country. You look at my birth certificate, it's
Hey,
going to tell you I'm black.
before anybody goes in there and says, "Why would you say such a thing, Rick?" My wife is white. My kid is
That
half
doesn't.
black, half white. So come on, people. That's that good ribbing
Yeah.
that we're talking about. Uh, anyway, I say all that because of what I started saying earlier. You take the good with the bad. It happens. And
Yes.
I'm gonna start this off. This is Raider fan talking here. I'm gonna give the Chiefs the props. How many other teams? I can only name one actually. That was the Buffalo Bills. Have gone to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row, and then to win two out of those three, 3 out of 5 to be exact, in the Mahomes era. All right, that's nothing to sneeze at. Because I'm gonna tell you this: I'm jealous. Raider fan is jealous. I would love for my team to go on a run like that. And I guarantee you, everybody listening to my voice, no matter who your team is, you'd take that too.
Heck yeah.
I mean, who
And with
wouldn't?
all the scrutiny that goes with it, if the refs, the refs and all that other crap, all the side note. You know what? there are 31 other teams, including the Chiefs, that would take the Patriots run if even with the deflate gate and the cheating.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean, hey, you're talking to the man whose new part owner was the whole reason that we were involved in his very first scandal, the Tuck rule.
right.
So
Yep.
I know it. I've been there. I've felt the pain. I get it. Titan fans, uh, you felt pain, especially in the Super Bowls. What was that? 1 yard out from winning the game, only to let time expire. Uh, Even the champions right now felt pain 3 years ago when they played these same Chiefs. So it happens to well, I guess not everybody. I'm sorry, Cleveland Brown fans, you don't know.
Detroit Lion fans, you don't know.
Detroit's been to the edge and blew it.
They've never been to the Super Bowl.
True, true. That and, and before I get to the Sunday's game, I want to go over that because they lost their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. How hard do you think it'll be for them to get to stay on track?
It depends. It depends on how good of a leader. Uh,
Dan Campbell?
what's the name of the? Yeah, Campbell is. It's really going to depend on how well he leads them. Coordinators. That's going to be the offensive coordinator. It's going to affect Goff more than anything because he's going to have a different voice in his ear.
True. Very true.
But it's really up to Campbell, and to be honest, I don't really care.
Kellen Moore, who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, he just stayed in New Orleans, even though the rest of the team left. He's now the New Orleans Saints head coach. It is official.
Yeah. Yes. They were talking
And
about that before the game.
yeah, 9 times out of 10, when you hear about this, it does not go the team's way. They usually lose the big game and then they lose the coordinator. Um,
Mm,
the last
I
team to
disagree.
successful, well, I was going to get to your team. Yours was the last team that was successful in losing a coordinator and still not losing anything off the top. Was it
I mean,
enemy?
the Patriots lost coordinators and still won Super Bowls. I mean,
Yeah, but I know the 2 times that they lost Josh McDaniels, they had a down year the following year, but then they got back on track. The Chiefs didn't miss a beat. They went right back to the Super Bowl.
you're talking about the following year. You're not
Yes.
talking. You
Yes,
said you said
I'm sorry.
lose. You
I'm
said
sorry.
lose the big game. You were talking about once they know they were leaving that they lost the championship game. That's what you said. You weren't. You didn't say next year.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, yeah,
I
you
kind of
are
meant
correct.
both, but yeah,
Some
you're right.
some of them have had a down year. I mean, I expect honestly the Eagles to have a down year next year just because of that factor. It's the same thing that happened in 17. They lost their coordinator,
Hmm.
so it's, you know,
Now, on
but
that same track, while we talk about that, let's go to the Chiefs.
okay.
They're not losing any coordinators. I don't see Spags going anywhere.
Not yet. Man, if
Um,
I was if I was the Bills, I would hire Spags as my head coach just on principle. I'd fire McDermott and hire Spags just on principle.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I take him. I
Right?
take him in a
Just
heartbeat.
just on principle. Just to
Yeah.
get him out of Kansas City.
So, do you think there'll be any Super Bowl hangover for the Chiefs?
I wouldn't call it a hangover. I would say I'm not, again, and I joked with us in the group, it's really hard to wipe my tears with the weight of these rings on our hands. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't, I was disappointed that we lost, but I wasn't like devastated. I still slept very well Sunday night. Um, but that being said, it's too early for me to have a good, outlook on what next year's going to be because we really don't know what's going to go on. I suspect that we'll have a retooling year. I
Hmm.
mean, these guys are human. it kind of seems if you look at all the games that they've played since 2018, they've actually played a full extra year of football.
Yeah, the
They
Chiefs have
played
played a lot of
21
football.
they played 21 extra games. That's playoffs and Super Bowls. Okay. It looked like, and I'm not taking any away from the Eagles, but it looked like the Kansas City Chiefs and everybody hit a brick wall in that game. There was no energy. And granted, they were defeated. They when they walked on the field, they their mindset wasn't right. And you know what? The Eagles took them behind the woodshed and beat their butts. But I suspect, if you ask, held my feet to the fire, I think they'll have a down year. They'll have a retooling year,
Okay. Um,
maybe two. I suspect that Mahomes in the next 10 years will reach another couple Super Bowls.
you think they'll make the playoffs though next year? Don't you think?
Again, it's going to depend on what happens in the offseason. I mean, they have a lot of free agents that are leaving.
Yeah, I mean, my whole logic is, and it has nothing to do with the Super Bowl, the outcome. If they'd won the Super Bowl 22 to 20s per se, we'll just say, I would say this same thing. It's going to be very hard for them next year because a lot of these close games, you see it from other teams that lose close games. The very next year, they win those close games. And those teams that win those close games, for whatever reason, they lose a few of them. Not saying that that will happen to the Chiefs, but that would be my
I mean,
prediction.
it hasn't happened to the Chiefs yet.
No, no, not yet. But I'm thinking, I
And
honestly think
that's
they'll make the playoffs again next year, but they won't be like 14, 15 wins. I think they'll be like a 10 or 11 win squad next year.
and there's 7 years under Mahomes, so
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And you
I mean,
know,
it's really too early to
there's a,
give even say how many wins they're going to have next year. It's really hard to do that.
that's true. That's very true. Now, just looking at Sunday,
Hmm.
we'll go offense, defense, because I know you touched on the offense a second ago, so we'll start with them. Overall,
Okay.
how do you feel about the offensive play? And you can break it up in the first half and second half too.
Man, it wouldn't matter. Both halves sucked. Um, I mean, and yes, Mahomes got his empty calories at the end, but I think that's kind of because the Eagles called off the dogs, so to speak. Our O line, I said last week, you had asked the question, what's the most important position
Mm-hmm.
for the Chiefs to win? And I said left tackle, Joe Thuney. And he got destroyed, along with the other four guys. Him and Caliendo on that left side, they couldn't block me on that day. It just
I am
they were
so
bad.
amazed too because not one time during that game did the Eagles blitz. That was all a
Correct.
4-man rush.
Correct. The
So
last
yeah,
team to do
I
that and
never
win the
seen
Super
that.
Bowl, the last team to do that and win the Super Bowl was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Super Bowl
Yeah,
55
it's
against the
almost like
Chiefs.
the Eagles said, "Hey, just do what Tampa Bay did."
But the difference in the Tampa Bay game, and yes, it's eerily similar of the play and the way that we got completely dominated. It is eerily similar. The huge difference is our O line was bad all year, and we made the change and we got better in the last 5 to 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
In Super Bowl 55, we lost our left tackle in the AFC Championship game. So we only really had 2 weeks to address the O line.
Yeah.
And that, against that defensive line, it wasn't any good. But, my hats
Do do
off.
do you
I
see
did
any
not expect that
do you
to
see
to
any
be the way
age
that it happened.
problems with the offense,
Nah.
even with
Nah, them
Kelsey?
guys
Because I noticed that people were saying
Kelsey's
Kelsey's
not
looking slow. Kelsey's looking
Kelsey's not
like
on the
he.
line. Kelsey doesn't
Well,
he's
I'm
not
not.
an
I'm talking
offensive
about the
lineman.
offense. I'm talking about offense in general.
I mean, I would be surprised if Kelsey's playing next year. I think he's going to retire. He's got 1 year left, so even if he plays 1 year, next year will be his last year. Um, Joe Thuney, he could probably we could probably draft his replacement, but The center is good. Trey Smith, I mean, he's a big free agent. I don't. He's probably not going to be on our team next year because he's going to cost too much money. I mean, that offensive line is going to be retooled, for sure. But yeah, those main characters, yeah, I would say they are getting a little long in the tooth.
How do you think the defense did in the game?
I think the defense did exactly what they prepared to do, and that was stop Saquon Barkley. They forgot about everybody else. They thought that Saquon Barkley was the only way that they could get beat, and they were wrong because they shut Saquon down. I think he only had like 50 some odd yards off of 20 carries, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So they did their job. I'm not as upset with the defense as I am with the offense. I mean, by the time the middle of the second quarter, man, our defense was just dog ass tired. They'd been on the field for the
Yeah,
entire game, you
that
know?
time of possession
So,
was just
yeah.
crazy.
I mean, we did 4 plays and out, 3 plays and out, 3 plays and out, 2 plays interception, 1 play interception, so it was just, yeah, it was bad. It's bad.
So you wouldn't make any changes going into next season with the defense, though.
You're going to have to be more specific. Like what?
Uh, do you see a weak link on the defense right now?
I'm not going to overreact because of the one game, and that's what everybody's doing. The team was good enough to be ninth overall in total defense all year long.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that there
Uh,
should be any changes on defense.
I mean, I would love to have a premier pass rusher. I would love to have what the Eagles have, where they can just rush four and let the linebackers and the backs on the backside just Velcro coverage everybody, which is basically what happened to us. I would love for that to happen, but you know,
But you
I
know what they
don't
say.
foresee the Chiefs doing that because they don't pay for linebackers. They're not so like Nick Bolton, he's gone. He's not going to be paid. They don't pay for wide receivers. They don't pay for running backs.
I can see it
So
though because this is a copycat league. The NFL is a copycat league. Maybe not the Chiefs, but you're going to see. I'm going to say two or three more teams next year that try to emulate what the Eagles do. They won't get it exact, but you'll see
what
them
did the
try it.
Eagles do? Let's be honest. What did they do? They did not look this dominant all year, except for in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl. Nobody was talking about them being the second coming of the Chicago Bears defense, except for Eagle fans.
That's true. I mean, they they did kind of go on a mini run, not just the NFC Championship game, but the divisional round as well. It just didn't seem like it if you watched it because the Eagles' offense didn't score a lot, so it was a closer game than what it should have been. But you're right, in that NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl, they kind of turned it up. But you're right, they're not the '85 Bears. They're they just
I
had
mean,
a
they won 28
unbelievable
to
run.
they won 28 to 22 in the divisional round
That's what I'm
against the
saying.
Rams.
Yeah,
In the wild card round, they won 22 to 10 against the Packers. I mean, so they weren't like destroying people. And I want to see what I just want to look at their scores in
mm-hmm.
general overall here.
I mean, I'm not taking anything away from them. They were the number one ranked defense in the league. So it's not like they just went in ranked number 12 and then turned it on. They
No,
were
not at
number
all. But they weren't destroying people.
right.
So their first big like elongate so like week 1, the Packers 34-29. They lost to the Falcons 21-22.
Mm-hmm,
Beat the Saints 15 to 12. They dominated the Buccaneers 33 to 16. Squeaked by the Browns 20 to 16.
mm-hmm,
They destroyed the Giants 28 to 3. Beat the Bengals 37 to 17. Squeaked by the Jaguars 28 to 23. Everybody destroyed Cowboys, so 34 to 6 against the Cowboys. There weren't very many just ass whoopings like this.
right.
Otherwise, they would have been overall proverbial betting favorites on Sunday, and they were 1.5 point underdogs.
True.
So, I mean, nobody's seen that, in my opinion. Now, I'm not taking anything against away from them because, as a Chiefs fan, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to be utterly dominated like that. You know, when our buddy Nelson said the score was we were going to lose by double digits, you know, I damn near laughed. You know, because I'm like, no way, we don't. We the Chiefs don't get dominated like that when Patrick Mahomes is
Right.
playing. You know, so it was like, you know, but
I'm gonna be
when
honest with you.
when
I don't
when we
even
had
believe
that
Philly thought that Philly was going to do that good defensively.
no, I'm not going to agree with you because I told you I listen to all the other team's radio. I do that all year long because I just like to hear how they talk about the Chiefs.
Hmm.
Every Eagles fan that called their sports line last year or last week said it's going to be a blowout. Every single one of
Really?
them. Yes. And in
Wow.
my mind, I'm thinking, no way. Even Nelson was like, it's going to be a blowout. And I'm like, no way. And I had no idea that they were going to be that dominant.
I
No way.
I knew that the only Eagles games I've watched were the last two, the divisional round and the NFC Championship game, and I just knew in my heart it was going to be a close game. It was going to be one of those whoever has the ball last wins kind of games. I was
Yeah,
fooled.
I thought that they would be ahead at the end and we would, you know, Mahomes would do his magic and, you know, we'd win by 3 or 4 points. But, you know, I was as just taking my and I will say this. I was probably looking at the game overall with my Chiefs colored glasses on. I wasn't being as impartial when it came to the game as I probably should have been. I spoke more from a fan point of view than, you know, this type of point of view where we're actually talking. So, as a pure NFL football fan, man, do I love what the Eagles did. I mean, that's going to be a team if the offensive coordinator doesn't screw everything up next year, their new one, that could be a team to be reckoned with for a few years to come.
Hey, I just want to let you know if it makes you feel any better, just by virtue of you being on this podcast with me, you're part of a winning team because I am the Any Given Sunday Picks League champ this year.
All right, there you go. Good job.
Did you hear that, Candace? Me, not you. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Let's talk
Not
about
bitter at
penalties.
all.
Um,
All right.
Much has been made, especially this year, about
Mm-hmm.
penalties and calls going in the Chiefs' favor. And I remember saying last week, I just want to see a good game. I want it to be a decisive game that did not have a flag that hinged on which way the game was going to go. Well, that happened. But how do you feel about the calls that were made and calls that weren't made overall in the game?
Man, I only remember a couple, the first two, the one against them and then the one against us that were pretty questionable calls, you know, but
Are
pretty
you
much to
talking
me it
about
kind of
Brown's
in the in
hands
the
to the
first
face?
quarter. In the first quarter, yeah. I think on their first drive, that's how we stopped them. And then I think on the following drive, we had something that was pretty questionable,
Mm-hmm.
a pass interference that kept their drive going. But, you know, those two calls were the only two that I thought overall, you know, the problem with with people saying that the refs are on the Chiefs side is because the Chiefs are on freaking TV so much. I guarantee you, if you statistically look at the Browns games, they get the same amount of fucking calls.
Yeah.
It's not overall for the Chiefs.
I think there was actually a stat out about that. I think the Chiefs weren't even like third or fourth as far as calls going in their favor this season.
And
So
why is it that when a team doesn't get called, they don't get the credit for just being more disciplined?
you know what?
I don't hear
that's
anybody.
gonna segue
I
into
don't.
what I'm getting ready to talk about
Hold up, though.
because
Hold up, because I want to say this real quick. I
mhm,
don't hear anybody complaining about that shot on that fumble that Mahomes got, and they cracked him right in his head, right in the face mask, like full force, pushed his neck back. No, that wasn't even called. But nobody's complaining that that flag wasn't thrown. But the Chiefs get all the calls. That's what irritates me.
and I get that. I totally get that. Um, this this term that I'm about to bring up has been used lately a lot, and I'll let you discuss whether it's real or whether it's not. But I think
Okay.
that played into people that were not Chiefs fans using the calls as a tool this season, and it's Chiefs fatigue. The same thing that happened with the Patriots several years ago is happening with the Chiefs now. What's the phrase? Everybody hates a winner. When you
Yeah,
see
I
somebody
mean,
at the top for a long time, you want them to get knocked down.
yeah, and revision is history. We all hated the Patriots when Tom Brady was in his glory, right?
Yeah,
Everybody hated the Patriots. But you sit down and look at it now, you're like, man, those were really good teams. People give them their credit. Revisionist history. In 10, 20 years from now, nobody's going to talk about Chiefs fatigue. They're going to say how good they were for this extended period of time. We don't know when the window's going to close, but as of right now, it's this time frame. Um, you know, Chiefs fatigue, yeah, whatever. I mean, it is what it is.
would agree with that. I mean, I hate to say it, but I agree with it. The only part I wouldn't agree on is not all them Patriots teams are good. The 2000 squad was thoroughly beat. It was a fumble. I stand by that.
They were
Nightmare.
good. They were good.
Yeah, they were good.
You
I mean,
can't. They
I'm
may have
I'm
lost that.
I'm just being
They may.
animated.
No, I get it. I mean, but they may have lost that game, but they were good, obviously. Because whether they won your game, that didn't send them to the Super Bowl. They still had to beat the Steelers the next week.
That's true. That's very true.
But and that's society in general. If somebody or something is doing well, somebody wants to try to tear it down. I mean, that's been human nature in history. I mean, hell, it's even in the animal kingdom. When you see an old lion who's taking control of all this pride and they're doing really well, what happens? A younger lion comes in and tries to snatch it away. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, that's nature. And what's the saying? If you don't like us, beat us. Well, the Eagles took care of that. They threw us clean off the mountain. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're
Sometimes
the
you're the
nail.
nail. I agree with that 100%. And I'm not gonna lie. There were a lot of Eagles fans Sunday that did not know they were Eagles fans until Sunday night.
Exactly. And I think that's probably the thing that irritates me. It's like with because I'm a Kansas fan, obviously, but the KU Missouri thing.
Mm-hmm.
Missouri takes more pleasure in Kansas losing than their own team winning. And that's kind of like every other team in the NFL took more pleasure. Like, I guarantee you, the Bengals people in Cincinnati were doing backflips and their team didn't even
Bro,
make the
you don't have to tell
playoffs.
me. I'm on several Raiders forums. Do you think that we were not on cloud nine?
Right. But
It
I
like,
mean, you take more pleasure in somebody else's pain versus your own success or failures. That's I've you know what? If you're a true Eagles fans, Philadelphia, you have all the right to talk all the crap you want. But all these other teams that are jumping on the bandwagon because the Chiefs lost, man, look in the mirror. Get your own team in there and then say something. That's the only thing that ticks me off, but I digress.
and you know what? I get that because as much as we want to talk shit, you lost. You guys got creamed. At the end of the day, we got to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, were we even there?
Right.
and and I can see that, like I started off the show talking about, hey, there's a lot of people that are upset because uh, people are talking shit. It works both ways. You got to be able to take it, and the person that's giving it's got to also be able to understand. Are you really in a position to just like pour it on nonstop? And like you just said, if you're an Eagles fan, you are. Everybody else, we're not. We're really not. I
Right.
don't know
But
what the future holds for my squad, but I know we weren't in the Super Bowl.
I will say this too, and I use a well-known Chiefs fan, Nick Wright. Okay, he got all the smoke he could handle Monday on his show,
Yes,
but
he
he is
did.
he is such a over-the-top Chiefs fan, and when they win, he's gonna let you know that they won.
Mhm.
But he took every shot that everybody gave him. That I was very proud of him for the way he handled himself on
And I
that show.
respect him because of that too.
Yes, and I mean, he obviously, if you don't know who Nick Wright is, he's on what's the name of his show on
Uh,
FS1?
God, I forget the name of it.
Uh, anyway, people probably know who's listening, but he always drops banners. They had every banner that he was going to drop. They popped the yellow and red confetti
That was
just
funny.
because they said, that we bought it, we can't give it back. We got to use it. They had marching bands. They had sing an a cappella group come on that sang to him, and the end line was Brady's still the GOAT or something like that. He took all the smoke and he received it, and it was well deserved because he is a very over the top fan. And when you are that way, yes, you should be willing to receive what you dish out.
Exactly. And you hate to say it because I'm not a fan of Nick because of the arrogance. But again, I respect him because, he took it on the chin and he took it
But
like a
see,
champ.
he's not arrogant. You call him arrogant because you are the Chiefs' rival. That's your team.
I,
He's
I hear
not
some of the things
arrogant.
he says. It's all in the way that he says it though. Like
No, it's
I
the
can
way
hear
you
you I can hear
receive it.
you say the same thing as him, but it comes across a lot different.
It's the way you receive it. Because if I'm saying the same thing as him, it's you. It's not him. It's not me. It's the way you're receiving it.
No, hear me out. I know we're almost done here, but let's say our teams are playing or
Hmm.
have played, and we'll just use the last
Hmm.
game as an example. Hey, if y'all hadn't fumbled, you had a chance to win the game. That's the way you would say it. He would come across and say, "Oh, you blew it, but you weren't going to win anyway." What is the "you weren't going to win anyway" comment for? You don't know that. You know we blew it, but you don't know we weren't going to win anyway. That's what I mean when I say he's kind of got that arrogance about him, as opposed to you are more factual. So
Yeah,
when you make it make sense, it works a lot better.
I never over the top and says things for clicks. I agree with you. I don't. Nick Wright used to be a local radio guy here.
Oh, I
I
remember What's
don't.
Right with Nick Wright. I
Yeah,
remember that.
well,
I used to live in Kansas City, so
yeah, and that's also the name of his podcast as well. What's right with Nick Wright? But I don't consider him arrogant. Now, Skip Bayless, a huge Dallas Cowboy fan,
yeah,
arrogant.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
difference between him and Nick Wright, in my opinion.
possibly. And I would give you the credit on that statement because I don't watch Nick Wright enough to differentiate. I've seen plenty of Skip Bayless to know you're exactly right there.
And the reason
His
why I say
Cowboys can
that
do no
is
wrong.
exactly that's why I was going to go there. Skip Bayless, no matter how bad the Cowboys are, they're the second coming of the best team ever. Nick Wright realized the Chiefs, shat the bed on Sunday.
Yeah.
He didn't make excuses. Yeah, he took it on the chin, and Skip, like I said, will never say his Cowboys are bad ever.
True. Although
So that's why I say he's
he's
not
lost
arrogant.
many a
He's
Mountain
just
Dew
he's
to
definitely
Shannon
over the
Sharp.
top. True that.
Okay, we're getting ready to close it up. We do have some True Crime Thursday coming next week, so get ready for that. Hopefully, we can get Nelson on board. I want to hear his thoughts on the game before we close out the football season. Appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Make sure that you leave us a comment on any platform. Big Show, take us on out of here.
Thank y'all for watching, and we look forward to this summertime and next year. So love each other. Be safe if you're in my area, because Snowmageddon 2025 is on its way.
Unfortunately, I'm already starting to feel it here. Good night, everybody.